please stand and recite the gospel acclamation together with me? Let your steadfast love come to us, O Lord. Save us as you promised. We will trust your word. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 21st chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said, there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, and on the earth distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and of the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Then he told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Be on guard, so that your hearts are not weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of this life, and that day does not catch you unexpectedly, like a trap. For it will come upon all who live on the face of the whole earth. Be alert at all times, praying that you may have the strength to escape all these things that will take place, and to stand before the Son of Man. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
There we go. Hello there beyond the Advent wreath. Hello, I can see you. It does seem rather odd to have this type of gospel leading us into Advent, doesn't it? I think that once my confirmants said that it should have been a baby shower, really, instead of this type of reading that we're hearing here. All of this stuff is going on. So it takes a little looking into the script of how this Lucan gospel was written. Certainly we know well after the destruction of the temple. And at that time, it was well thought, you see, that the second coming of Christ would indeed happen within its own generation. And so what we have are the words of Jesus through the lens of Luke and how he was living in that moment in time. And so he says to this generation, nothing will pass away. You're going to see this happen. And the confusion arose, you see, as later generations happened, that it did not come yet again, the signs of the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so there can be a very big confusion if we're not careful, and especially in the times that we live now. Since World War II, there has never been such a open, actual action that seems more horrible to us than what we're seeing currently in ISIS. It was terrible enough when we first saw on television an American having his head lopped off almost with glee by one of the ISIS members, and as time goes on, the worst is yet to come, it almost would seem. We've heard, for example, of the small Christian group that was isolated on a mountaintop. You remember that? And how the United States had to come in and save these people, but they didn't save them all. And that's something that was only coming to light now. 2,000 young women from the ages of 9 through their teens, 2,000 were taken and sold off as slaves, as sexual favors to the leaders of ISIS, traded around. 800 of them have been saved, but 1,200 are still in captivity. We don't understand this type of evil, do we? It's something that kind of goes beyond our understanding of what it means even to be basically human. And so as a result, every generation has its moment in time where they think, could this be the sign? Are we living in those type of end times where evil is just so big? And it brings us back to reflection of the Old Testament stories of Noah, when it's written that humanity had become so evil it had to be stopped. And so we think about those things, but over generations, it's happened over and over. And there's a sense of confusion. How could this last so long? And how could it be, you see, that the name of God, whether you call it Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Jehovah, Yahweh, or even Allah, could be invoked in such violence? The plane that crashed into the first tower, the last words spoken by the pilot were what? Anybody know? Allah Akbar. God is great. Is that what you say when you're out to murder people? Is that how it's done? There's a great confusion in all of this, and especially we who are Christians and walking into this first Sunday Advent, and we say to ourselves, there's such a juxtaposition of what we're trying to get into in the spirit of Christmas. We want the Christ child. We want what this is all about. And we have these visions of what Jesus is all about. We'll sing our carols on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and they're sweet and they're beautiful. It's glorious. Or it's tiny baby Jesus, or stars in the night, or shepherds coming. And it almost seems as if we sing all of these things, and then we walk out this door, and we see the world for what it really is. It's violence, the way other people want to put heart together and kill in the name of that God. So what are we to do? So we start off with this text in Advent, which simply says, this, folks, is how the world is. And it seems it's always going to be that way. Just when we're on the verge of peace, someone decides that they're in disagreement. Some country is in disagreement with another. And it decides that it knows the will of God, and it's going to prove it by overpowering you and sweeping away your freedom. It happens again and again, over and over. The Roman Empire at the time of Jesus, swarms of Huns that come down, sweeping down into Europe, and then the Crusades, and then world wars, civil wars, War II, Vietnam. It just doesn't stop. So what are we going to do and think about it? How do we really make Christmas a reality? And maybe that reality of Christmas in the baby Jesus, in all its sweetness, in all its silent night tenderness, is the reality that God says, yeah, I know how it is. And I want you to think about a parallel story when you think about what's going on around you. When you think that God, evil is going to win. And over against that is that constant story, even coming out of Luke this morning. Don't worry, I'm with you. I know what you think. I know you think that evil is going to overpower everything, but I promise you, it's not going to be that way. In this Christ child, in this helpless one, is the hope that we've been singing about, Israel's hope and consolation. But not just Israel. It's for every generation that was going to be born. It was born for the people who first heard that word of shepherds singing in fields, wise men coming, and then it went on decade after decade. And even through all of those wars, people gathered at Christmas time and they sang their carols. People in the 10th century, people in the monasteries of Europe, during the Reformation, all the way to coming to the United States, the itinerant Methodist preachers running from town to town, telling the story of Jesus, telling the story of Messiah, for all of the people that came over here, looking for hope, looking for freedom, yet they carried that over and over, even when they were persecuted. And I'm wondering even now of the hundreds of thousands of people who are trying to escape to Syria, whether they be Muslims, whether they be Christians, trying to look for a sense of freedom where their children won't be blown to bits by a bomb that drops on their house. Where shall they find comfort? And even if they haven't heard that story, does it make it any less real? Is it reality that we want to carry forth even in our own lives? What do we want to carry out of this church anyway, after we're done with our singing and our praises and our bread and our wine? It's the possibility that for you and for me, we may speak a different type of story. And even in the midst of all of the confusion that comes out of us and out of the Near East, we can say, it's horrible, and God knows it. And yet there is a promise that follows us all in our lives, right out of Christmas into the new year, that simply says, hang on, there's better things coming, even though they may not even happen in your life. But you can help make it happen by what you do, by what you say, that what you have to offer is a different story, away from the realities you see of what you're seeing on your TV or reading in the paper, that despite what the world sees, God has a better idea, and that's the idea of that child. So buck up, everybody. The blue is in the church, and blue is the color of hope. So look around as you come closer to Easter, and every time you see the color blue, tell yourself there's going to be hope. That beyond everything the world wants to perpetrate on people and all its death, that there's a different story going on. And with you and I, we are the ones who are going to tell that story over and over to each other, to our children, so that it can carry on. Because chances are, the next generation and the generation of that is going to have to put up with some stupidity that the world wants to perpetrate on them. We have the honor of giving that story over to that next generation to say, there's a better story. Now it's your turn to tell it to your children and your children's children. That is the magic of Advent, the telling of the story that contradicts all the stupidities of war, of all the stupidities of sin, all the stupidities that the world could ever perpetrate on one another. Tell the story, tell it again. Prepare your Advent. And when you come on Christmas here and you sing your carols, you are once again proclaiming there is a better story. There is one that is even eternal, that covers us and invites us to think in a radically different way. There is a possibility that evil isn't going to win, but the grace of God is the final answer to all of human hope, all our desires. It's maybe something that we can't see now, but we are invited to be part of that story. Color is blue, everyone. Look around you this week. Say to yourself, what am I seeing? I'm seeing hope in that color. And as each Sunday approaches and as the story becomes clearer and bigger, and everything comes to a conclusion on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, once again, there's something that's going to triumph. Maybe not completely in the world, but it could triumph within you. You could make it the best Christmas ever. Not by all the peripheral stuff around it, but by saying this story is the best one yet. Out of all the history, no other history gives us a promise like this one. Hang on tight, everyone. Advent is coming. It's preparing the way, just as John the Baptist did. So, time to follow John's lead. Proclaim something that is more beautiful than what the world has to offer.